Welcome to Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management by Dynasty Financial Partners and hosted by CEO Shirl Penney.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management. I'm your host, Shirl Penney, founder and CEO of Dynasty Financial Partners. I'm incredibly excited about today's episode of Around the Track because I'm joined by my good friend and business partner at Dynasty Financial Partners, Casey Jorgensen. Casey, thanks so much for sitting down and having this conversation.
Happy I got the invite.
All right. Well, you might have invited yourself.
May have.
Yeah. Anyhow, I am really excited about it because we're going to talk a lot about professional development and some things I think that are going to be really important and interesting to the audience. All right, you've seen previous episodes. We only have one rule on Around the Track, which is I'm going to ask you 8 rapid fire questions. Each one represents 1 furlong out of 8 furlongs in a mile around the track, and we're going to do our best to get around the virtual track in less than 15 minutes.
I'm pretty fast.
You ready?
So I'm ready.
All right, let's go. So we're going to let you break out of the gate strong here by having you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, personally and professionally.
Sure. So hard to believe, but I've been in the wealth management industry for 10 years now. And fun fact, I am the same age right now that you were when you launched Dynasty.
Wow.
So started my career really because I was heavily impacted by the financial crisis. I was in high school at the time. My father lost his job. We had to sell our house. And I was interested to know everything that I can about wealth management to not end up in that situation. And I found out that I can not only learn for myself, but I can help others with that. So I really think it's one of the best professions to be in. Started as a client service associate, got my 7 and 66 licenses, moved my way into a financial planning role where I got my CFP. Thought I was being smart and moved into a succession and acquisition planning role because I wanted to see all the books for sale,
Right.
So that I could acquire one, because at the time that I joined the industry, the talk of the silver tsunami was just starting. Ended up falling in love with supporting advisors. Thought it was very interesting versus supporting end clients. Moved into practice management and strategy roles, and I noticed early on that this trend towards the movement towards independence, which you saw early on, wasn't going away. And I wanted to be at a firm that was leading that. And coincidentally, Dynasty, who I was following for quite some time, moved their headquarters to St. Petersburg. And I knew that I wanted to be part of the Dynasty team in St. Petersburg. And it was almost like a job role was written for me as part of the relationship management team. And so now, I'm in this new role as head of Dial, which again has been the best experience. So it was the best place for me.
All right, so I'm going to ask you about Dial. And you said a couple of things there, your passion for the industry and working with advisors, the fact that you really enjoy helping people. And then you mentioned almost like a role was created for you, but in this particular case, it was. So the head of Dial, the Dynasty Institute for Adaptive Leadership. Tell us about where we are, where we're going, and why you're so excited to be building out Dial.
Sure. So we've really spent the time laying the foundation for Dial over the last 4 years, and it was really in reaction to 2 things that we saw in the marketplace. With the movement towards independence, there was all these independent advisors and executives and client support professionals that really didn't have access to training and development in the independent space. And then the second trend that we saw was that in the wirehouse that was pretty good at training those professionals, they started to kind of scale back on that training. So even if you were an independent RIA and trying to hire someone from a wire that came with that training, you couldn't. So there became this overwhelming need for quality professional development and training at all layers of an RIA. And we felt that Dial really is the answer to that. And it has been for our network because they heavily lean on us for that professional development and training. And one of my favorite parts of seeing a firm launch is to go through the brand DNA process and how they came to be named and understand their logo. And really the story behind the adaptive leadership is we coach a lot around the adaptability quotient. And with our CEOs, how do you adjust your leadership style to meet the challenge or opportunity that's in front of you? And we really think that fit well with our brand because we're constantly adapting to the needs of our clients, the needs of their end clients, wealth tech entering the industry, preferences of employees and what they want. And so we thought that was appropriate. And when you look at our logo, the obvious thing that you'll see is a sundial, which is a nod to St. Petersburg, our headquarters, but also my hometown. But if you really look deeper, if you look at the sun in it, the whole idea behind it was that we wanted someone to come to a Dynasty Network firm from the start of their career, but also to the end of their career. And we would have training for them at every step. But also it's intentionally rounded for those little sun rays to look like people. Because a lot of what we do is about the community and peer learning. And I think that's really the strength of the Dynasty Network is the community.
Yeah, the life cycle and the curation of the professional development based upon where someone is in their career, I think is yet another big differentiator for what we're doing. Look, one of the things I think that differentiates Dynasty is so many of our professionals, yourself included, really love being in the field and out with advisors and working with the advisor and helping to have them win new business, sit with their clients and prospects, which really gives a great understanding that at the end of the day, we talk a lot about what differentiates the truly great firms from the good ones is the competency of the team, the quality of the service, and the quality of leadership, right? The best led firms are the ones that are going to continue to win disproportionately going forward. Based upon all the industry research that you've done, and again where we're starting to go with Dial, are there new trends, right? New things around professional development and human capital growth that you'd want to share with the audience?
Yes. So one thing I do want to touch on is even though I am the head of Dial, I still work in the field as a relationship manager, and that's intentional because I get the best ideas from our clients.
You get to stay proximate.
Yeah, you have to stay proximate. That's the most important thing. Being in the business every single day is helps me have that view. So I would say that there are two key things and trends that I'm seeing across the Dynasty Network, but also outside of the network. Is we're seeing executives in the network really step into that CEO role, which is great. It's what we want. But with that, they're having to realize, how do I, pass on some of my client management responsibilities? How do I not get so overwhelmed with all the projects that I have so that I can free up my time to think about the vision and strategy and the future of the firm? So one of the trends that we're seeing is with the CEO kind of relinquishing client management responsibilities, there's a gap in the organization of, well, who's going to take on those responsibilities? And what I'm hearing from CEOs is they really would like their task-oriented client service associates to elevate to more of a advice-oriented relationship manager. So that's an opportunity. The second is for the more sophisticated and larger RIAs, and we have many of them in our network. They're getting to a point where the CEO has so many projects and their partners have so many projects, but they're also responsible for client management, but also business development. Yeah. How do they, continue to grow and scale? And what they're struggling with is, how do we build out a professionalized middle management layer? And also that next generation of leaders once we decide to exit the business. So those two things are what we're trying to solve for right now in the Institute.
Got it. Casey, one of the things that I really enjoy about spending time with you is, like me, you're a student of the industry. And sometimes we talk about all the things that we're excited about, and sometimes we talk about some of the things that we're concerned about as well. So you can pick the time frame. If it's couple years or further out, what's a big pressing issue out there in the industry right now that really has you concerned?
Sure. So I think the number one thing is I'm concerned about talent. I think we have a talent shortage. I don't think we've
Across
done
the entire industry.
across the
Yeah.
entire industry. We have not done a good job as an industry making this attractive to job seekers. Number one. A second component of that is for the Gen Zs entering this business, we have to remember that we are relationship-driven business. And Gen Zs, they're digital natives. They're used to interacting through technology. They went through COVID. They experience performance and social anxiety. So that's going to be an additional challenge for our network firms in the industry as a whole, bringing them in and training them, which is why training and professional development is so important. And I would say the last bit on talent is for those that you have been able to find and hire and be part of your firm, it's going to be more difficult to retain them. I think we're seeing a lot of longtime employees get frustrated with maybe the leadership of their firms because maybe they're not sharing in the equity. One of the things I love about Dynasty is that everyone has an opportunity to be an equity holder. And now we're in a situation where that next generation can't even afford to buy that equity now. So I think what I would tell leaders is really think about your training, really think about constantly attracting talent, and really think about sharing in the success of your firm, because in the long term, it's better for you and the sustainability of your business.
All right, I'm going to ask you a follow-on question. So this is part B of the same question. So we're
Okay.
not moving to the next furlong. What would you say to leaders watching us? What can we do as an industry to attract more women into the profession?
Oof, I think it's a two-part problem. I think on the women's side, I think we need to create a bigger vision for our careers. I think too often that we get into these roles and we're okay with accepting that, and we're maybe scared to push ourselves into a more uncomfortable leadership position, or where we're maybe having to get ourselves into a position of maybe our comp is not guaranteed. And I think we need to be better supported, though, as where we should be better as an industry in adjusting that compensation model. I think over time, compensation needs to adjust to fit the role. Mm-hmm. And as we move from brokers to investment advisors to planners to really life coaches, I don't think the compensation model in the industry has grown to accommodate that. So I think overall, women have the best opportunity in the RIA space to have different models for how they can enter the industry and all the hats that they can wear within RIA. It's not like your typical wirehouse where you're sales support or you're an advisor and you have to eat what you kill. I think there's a lot more flexibility in the RIA space. And so my ask of the business owners and RIA executives out there is to think about being creative with your compensation plans to bring on more women into your firms.
Got it. Thank you for that. All right, so let's pivot here a little bit. I want to talk about entrepreneurship, leadership, but maybe have a little fun on how we do it. So how about this? Give me three words that would describe either your leadership style, your approach to entrepreneurship, and why specifically would you pick those three words?
Okay. So I would have to say scrappy, connector, and learner. So I say scrappy because I can do a lot with less. I'm very competitive. I'm very driven. I think growing up as a competitive athlete, I think it teaches you resilience and mental toughness. Yeah. So I can do a lot with very limited resources. So that's number one. Number two, I would say I'm a connector. I think I can connect the dots. I think I could connect people really well. I think I'm good at seeing the bigger picture and how business elements and people can collaborate better and be more innovative. And then finally, in being a learner, I'm almost like constantly nosy. I like to know what's going on. I like to hear people's perspectives. I'm always exploring new things. I love learning. I love reading every article, listening to every podcast, usually outside of our industry, because there are so many concepts outside of our industry that could be applied to our industry. Yeah. And sometimes we kind of limit ourselves with just staying within our box.
Got it. All right. So I think it was Mark Twain. There's this great comment about the importance of 10 years. And He was talking about being a parent. He said when my kids were 18, they thought I was a complete idiot. And when they turned 28, they said they can't believe how much we've learned in only 10 short years, right? And, the first 10 years of your career, so you had mentioned, being now, the age that I was when I was starting the business, I didn't do a good job of reflecting on much in the first 10 years. But after, a decade or so, you start to think a little bit about, some of the successes and the failures and things that you've learned. And for me personally, it's either you're having success or you're learning, right? There is no failure unless you quit. But so 10 years in, a little bit of reflecting on your career, what's something, that you're particularly proud of or a success that you would share, and what's something more constructive that you've learned from?
So I think that you and I are alike in that regard. I'm always like, what's next? What's next? What's next?
Yeah.
That it's hard for me sometimes to stop and reflect a bit. But I would say, reflecting on my time at Dynasty, the biggest success has been the Dynasty Advisor to CEO program.
Yeah.
I think it provides so much value to our executives. It made me understand better the mindset of a business owner and have so much empathy for them. I think it's good for the communities that they live in. I think it's good for the world. We need better leaders. So that's been the greatest success. But I would say my greatest failure is, I remember a few years back at an investors forum, we had Walter Isaacson speak.
Yeah.
And someone asked him the question, what was your biggest regret over your career? And it stuck with me what he said. He goes, I wrote about people in the arena, but I never put myself in the arena. Now, I could probably disagree with him and say you were in the arena, but and I would apply that to myself. There have been many opportunities where I could have become an advisor, or I could have, started my own business, but I was always really risk averse and scared of that. I'm one of those women that I needed to have a bigger vision for my future, but I was scared to take that risk. And sometimes I feel hypocritical, almost like an imposter, working with these business executives and business owners who have taken that leap of faith. Now, I've sat next to them, I've held their hand, I've advised them, I've critiqued them, but I've never actually sat in the chair. So that's one of my failures, and something that I think about going into the future, that I need to maybe have put something on the line myself to help really understand what they're going through and be a better coach and consultant to offer better professional development to these executives, which is why I think it was so brilliant of you to add the Executive in Residence program as part of Advisor to CEO, because these executives have sat in that seat, and it is different when you've done it. So.
Yeah, obviously sitting in the CEO seat now for quite some time, it can be lonely at the top, and it is one of those things in life that you, to your point, don't have complete empathy or proximity or understanding of until you actually sit in the chair, when all of the tough decisions, at the end of the day kind of ride with you. But short of that, I would argue a little bit with what you said, in that, you're a fellow entrepreneur, right? And we're entrepreneurs serving other entrepreneurs. And I think there's a beauty in that alignment. That's a real advantage for us at Dynasty. So look, over the course of the last 12 minutes or so, as we turn for home, 2 questions left. I'm struck by how many times you've mentioned clients, and proud of you for a lot of things, and that included. And in our annual culture survey at Dynasty, the part that ranks the highest every year, right, is this passion, and I dare use the word love, of our clients. And I know that's who you are as well. So let me ask you a little different question around the client piece. What would you say you hope that our clients, the advisors who are our clients, that you've gotten to know and build relationship with and connect with, what do you hope they say about you, Casey, when you're not in the room?
That's a great question. I would hope they say that she really cares about me. She really cares about my business. and she helped push us to maximize our potential. And we had a hell of a lot of fun doing it together. That would be the ultimate testament and testimony of my performance and my relationship with them and my time at Dynasty. That is what I would hope they would say.
Good. I talk to the clients that you cover a lot, and they say that and a lot more. So that's great. All right, here we are. Last question. Same question I ask every guest on the show. What's your Triple Crown? And for me, what that means is, what is that big, almost seemingly unattainable goal that sits out there that, despite the odds might be long for you to get that goal, you're waking up every day, you're energized, you want to run out there and get it. So for you, Casey, what would be like winning a Triple Crown?
So I would say within the next 12 months, I am laser focused on building a CSA to RM program. It's a play off of advisor to CEO, and it's going back to that trend that I had mentioned of how can we get support staff to go from being task-oriented to advice-oriented in a relationship management role so that it can release that burden from the executive, and it gives CSAs an opportunity to advance within the organization and be closer to the client. I also think that given that the majority of CSAs are women, I think it gives an opportunity for women in the industry to move up in an influence in an RIA, potentially even becoming equity holders themselves within the business. So that is what I am laser focused on building over the next 12 months. And then beyond that, I would say the vision for Dial is I want job seekers to want to go into this industry, specifically compete to work at a Dynasty Network firm, because they know they would have access to the best training that they could. And I want that to be because of Dial. So that's the grand vision and the hope for what we're trying to achieve.
Got it. Well, I certainly wouldn't bet against you. And in fact, I'm betting a lot on you. I appreciate you sitting down and having this conversation, and even more so appreciate your partnership at Dynasty.
Same to you, Shirl. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you to all of you for tuning in to another edition of Around the Track.